President Park Geun-hye is facing a rising sea of popular anger. For the past 3 weeks, South Koreans have been staging protests demanding her resignation. But that call for change is blowing in the wind. The protests stem from a scandal involving Park's friend Choi Soon-sil, an unelected individual with ties to a religious cult who was giving the president political advice. Choi has been charged with abuse of power and fraud, including a charge that she pressured big businesses like Samsung to donate about $68 million to 2 foundations she controlled. Park has apologised twice to the nation. And she'll be the first sitting president to be questioned by prosecutors over a criminal investigation. She has not been charged herself. But for protesters, that is not enough. They want a change from the politics as usual in South Korea, which enabled someone to use their personal network to gain access to the highest office in the land and the influence that wields. About 60% of South Koreans think their society is corrupt. The Park Choi scandal comes at a time when South Koreans in lower-level positions are being made to change the way they do business. It's part of the government's move to root out corruption. A new anti-graft law called the Kim Yong-ran Act came into effect in September. It means civil servants, lawmakers, journalists and some teachers can't accept meals worth more than $25. They're also barred from accepting any gift worth more than $42 if there's a conflict of interest. The punishment ranges from fines to up to 3 years in prison. Park Geun-hye campaigned on a political philosophy of principles and trust. But many South Koreans are asking if the president is now fit to represent those values in her remaining year in office. Natalie Pohanen, The Newsmakers.
Don Kirk joins me now from Seoul. He's an author and journalist who's covered the Korean Peninsula among many other assignments for more than 40 years. Thank you very much for joining us, Don. Is there anyone left to support the president, given her approval ratings are at 5% as we speak?
There's no doubt a hard core of supporters for the president, conservatives who don't like the idea of leftists or moderates upsetting the government. Sure, there are people left. However, aside from leftists and progressives and radicals and so forth, there are an awful lot of conservatives who also think that she should step down or that she should be impeached. So she doesn't have a lot of support. Of course, she still has some support.
So looking at Choi Soon-sil, whose foundation made tens of millions of dollars through her connections to the president, she seems to be very influential, seems to have heavily influenced the president and is connected to a religious cult. Help me understand the mindset a little bit here, because when I was reading about this, it seemed to be almost like the way Russians all those years ago saw the influence of Rasputin over the Tsarina. It's like there's this foreign force over our government. Is that an accurate analogy?
Well, there has been that analogy. We've heard that word Rasputin quite a lot, actually. The analogy is to the spiritual influence that was exercised by Rasputin, and some believe, in fact, most people believe, was exercised by Choi Soon-sil. She apparently is said to have engaged in shamanistic rituals with President Park. She's the daughter of a confidant of President Park's father, Park Geun-hye, who was president until he was assassinated in 1979. That confidant had a Church of Eternal Grace, which was kind of a multi-religious church reflecting Buddhist, Christian, shaman influences. And the daughter apparently carried on and has inveigled her way, it's said, into the confidence of President Park. So there's where you get the Rasputin comparison.
Right. Is there any way the government can sort of have legitimacy that it's cracking down on corruption and that the people should trust the government while they crack down on corruption, while at the same time the president is embroiled in a corruption scandal?
Well, the corruption investigation is extremely interesting. All kinds of stuff keeps coming up. She was going to some beauty parlor facelifting place somewhere, which was giving her all these treatments free of charge under a different name, said to have been arranged by Jae-soon That's just one story that I saw today. And new stuff is coming out all the time. So perhaps we're going to learn a great deal. I think this scandal is really going to undermine her, but she could survive. I'm not saying she's going to step down. She could survive as sort of a figurehead while appointing a prime minister who really takes charge of the government. She has a prime minister. The government has a prime minister who presides over cabinet meetings, but is actually not a powerful figure. Well, the prime minister, a new prime minister perhaps, could exert more power. She could remain in office until the end of her term, which is, there's an election coming up in December of next year. So, she may try to ride it out. That's one scenario. There are other scenarios as well.
Yeah, interesting to see if she does try to ride it out and the protests intensify. We'll be keeping a close eye on the story. Don, it's been great to talk to you. Thank you very much for joining us.